Hello, and welcome to 15 Minutes of Fame. My name is Robert Voisey. I'm the director of 15 Minutes of Fame. And 15 Minutes of Fame is 15 one-minute works that are written for a specific musician and ensemble. We put out calls for works for composers to write for these musicians, and then out of all the submissions that we received, we pick 15. Back earlier, I think it was in the beginning of this year. The deadline might have been, it was the beginning of this year. We put in a call for David Bohn, who's an organist and a pianist, for Toy Piano. He's a big toy piano aficionado and a great performer and advocate for toy piano. And we received 100 submissions for this 15 Minutes of Fame. David being a very advocate for new music composition and being a composer himself, and for the toy piano, decided to pick 4 different sets of 15. So he wound up selecting 60 different pieces to play in 4 different sets. And we've been playing each set over the year. This is our 4th set. It's a little bit of a holiday theme going on. But this is, 15 pieces that were selected for, our 4th set, which seemed thematically apropos for today. We have a whole bunch of composers here today that will be talking about their pieces, and we have some that, sent us some video because they couldn't reach us due to time zones or conflicts or things like that. With if I remember correctly, our first composer that we have is Stephanie Henry, and I think we have a little video from her.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Henry, and I am a composer, performer, pianist, educator from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have written works for orchestras, for chamber ensembles, solo instruments, musical theater, film, opera, you name it, I probably dabbled in it a little bit. I am very excited for you to hear my piece, Autumn Fairies, for toy piano. It was actually inspired by one of my piano students. I was playing a little riff for him, and he was like, oh my gosh, that makes me think of fall fairies. And I was like, fall fairies, autumn fairies, each fairy is responsible for changing the leaves a different color and allowing the season to change and to make the fall beautiful. So I kept that idea in mind as I composed this piece. Thank you so much to Vox Novus. I'm so grateful for them for putting on this event. And thank you for David for performing all of them. Enjoy.
Awesome. What a great start. And I would like to bring Karel to the stage. Karel, are you out there? Hey, how's it going?
Hello, pretty good. Yeah. Awesome to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Carol, why don't you tell us a little bit about you, yourself, and this piece?
Well, I live in cold state of Wisconsin, like David. That's where I met him. I'm originally from what used to be Czechoslovakia, but I'm longer American than Bohemian, so that's okay with me.
Okay, by us too.
Thank you. And the piece, the few years ago, I bought toy piano for my granddaughter, and boy, I thought I don't want to say the word beast, all right? So it has mind on its own, and I was thinking, can you convey some emotion or intimacy through toy piano? So I wrote this piece. What do you mean? Which is question on its own, and that's about it.
Well, let's find out. And here's your piece.
Hello, I'm Robert Fleisher. My toy piano miniature, Bach for Jan, is a tribute to composer Jan Bach, a dear friend and longtime Northern Illinois University faculty colleague. Jan was a terrific and prolific composer who was born in 1937 and died in 2020. His music is widely performed and recorded in the U.S. and abroad. The title of Jan's 1972 trio Eisteddfod for flute, viola, and harp refers to a legendary Welsh contest involving games, songs, and musical instruments. Jan liked to play games, which could explain why the very old Welsh war song that inspired his trio isn't recognizably heard until nearly the end of Eisteddfod, where it follows rather than precedes his own 12 variations on that theme. I also like to play games, and the single statement of the same Welsh tune heard in My Bach for Jan is ornamented by several variants of the Bach tetrachord familiar to fans of Schoenberg, Berg, and Webern. In German, the letters BACH refer to the pitches B flat, A, C, and B natural, which first appears in the middle octave, followed by its inversion an octave higher, and then the original form again an octave lower. Leading into the final phrase, the original tetrachord appears in counterpoint with its inversion above. Many thanks to Rob Voisey and especially David Bohn for all his much appreciated help and hard work.
Sorry, David, we're going to bring on Leo just a second.
Okay.
And we're just going to bring on Leo Brauneiss to speak about his piece. Hey, Leo, where are you? Hey, how's it going, Leo?
Robert, yes. So, I don't want to talk too long as this piece is short, and no, it would be bad to talk longer than the piece lasts. So it's kind of a very short story about tune, hopefully catchy melody, which is somehow lost. First, the accompaniment is okay, it fits well, and then the harmony is somehow lost between this melody and this partner, if you can say so, and somehow the pianist gets crazy, and in the end the melody is just alone, and this is why it is a sad tune. No, but it's not too sad. It's erotic, of course. Yeah.
It's toy piano.
It's toy piano. Yes, okay.
Well, let's see if David can find it. Hi, Jonah. I think you're muted.
That would help.
Hi, Jonah. How are you?
Doing great. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm doing great. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your piece that's coming up?
I am a flutist and a composer. I'm from Northeast Ohio. I've been mostly looking at new little projects for different instruments to write for, and I saw this when the call was cut out. I thought, wow, toy piano. I think I've heard of one piece for toy piano. So I thought that'd be a really cool thing to add at least one more and hear some more. So this piece, I was really thinking about how the toy piano almost to me seemed almost like it's a memory of a piano, but just in a convenient package. So I thought I would write a piece that felt like a memory of something real sentimental, but it doesn't really stick around too long. So I hope it's sentimental.
I think you'll get there. Let's hear it.
My name is César Zumel, and I have written Quick Santo Domingo for toy piano. It has two very clear parts, and its emotional objective is very different. In the first, there is a plenty of stinging sound and dissonances, which produces a lot of anguish and discomfort. The emotion described and all the difficulties of the COVID-19 pandemic, those suffered by people who were hospitalized. Musically, it is an octave obstinate built from the bass, left hand, and answered with chords in the right hand, to finally meet in a transition. This almost distressing first part arrives to the second. The situation turns into another cantabile and nicer. This time with few dissonances, with a totally hopeful intention, and that represents all the difficulties overcome. The name of the work is due to a Spanish town, Santo Domingo de la Calzada, where a year ago I experienced a situation of anguish and hope, both at the same time in a very short period of time. That is why it is called quick.
Hi, my name is Niamh Gibbs, and I'm a violinist and composer from London in the UK. I'm really excited and grateful that my piece was chosen for this event. So my piece for Toy Piano is called Fragments, and the point of it is to demonstrate how a piece which is very asynchronous can actually come together with all its different fragments to somehow make sense to our ears and sound like a melody. And the reason I wanted to do it like this as well is because with the toy piano, it kind of gives off that idea of a little kid going over, experimenting, playing around with it, and it just all sounding like a mess and not making any sense. But I wanted to try and capture that feeling while also capturing a melody in general. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy the piece and enjoy the concert. Thanks.
Hi, Jose.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Jose, tell us a little bit about you and this piece.
Right. I'm from Portugal, of Indian origin. So I was born in Thailand and educated in England. So I'm a bit of a cultural mix. This piece was written in the middle of winter, and I try to convey a sense of feeling cold and also a sense of monotony.
Sounds great. Well, let's hear the piece played by David. great. Hey, Akmal. Yay! That was a little latency from
Thank
the
you, David.
internet. Well, that's a little encore there from David of his last piece and so forth from Akmal. There's always a little bit of an internet delay going on back and forth. So that was 15 minutes of fame, 15 1-minute works written for David. This is our last fourth set from 15 minutes of fame, but we do still have a little bit of an encore from David with a different instrument, the taishigoto. He's going to be playing one of his pieces, Yogiri, on the taishigoto, and we'll see that in just a second. But just to give a little bit of an introduction to that, like I said, David is a huge champion of the toy piano, but also 1-minute pieces and also instruments, rare and unique instruments. And this is a Japanese instrument, and we had just finished doing a workshop with the instrument. We actually have another call for composers who want to write for this instrument as well. And there's a workshop call. Please, I encourage everyone to write for it. David is obviously a wonderful player, and it's a very unique, interesting instrument, as you will see in a moment. And one of the reasons why we're doing workshops is because it's a new and different instrument. When I mean new, it's actually less than a century new. So when things aren't electronics, I find it's very interesting to have an acoustic instrument that is so new. So we're kind of introducing the instrument to especially Western composers, but composers all over, and just kind of talking to them about what's the pros and cons of the instrument and how to write for it and so forth. So please join that workshop. And we're doing this workshop in preparation for another 15 minutes of fame. So, write a 1-minute piece for that. With that huge introduction, let us bring on David to perform his piece, Yogiri, on the taishigoto. Fabulous performance, David.
Thank you.
You know what? And before we sort of do the whole 15 minutes of fame thing, why don't you just tell us a little bit about the Teshigoto and the upcoming 15 minutes of fame call?
Yeah. The Teshigoto is actually just a hair over 100 years old. I think it's 110 at this point. Invented around 1912, 1913. It's based on some earlier Japanese instruments, but it's something that was specifically geared towards the amateur home market and does not require the sort of study and experience that a lot of the, for lack of any better term, classical Japanese instruments require. There's stories of traditionally with the Hichiriki that you spend years learning all of the repertory before you even touch the instrument and such. And this is something that's very much marketed towards the amateur musician in the home use. It started out with 2 strings, and over various generations of instruments, typically find them as 5 or 6 string. And it's actually got a cousin in India called the Bulbul Tarang, which goes even further. There's 10 strings on it, on a typical one now. This is also made in different sizes with and acoustic as well as electric versions. And I first saw one in a friend's house back in the 80s, and it took me about 20 some years to actually get one for myself. So it's a real interesting instrument, as one would suspect, given its market, for lack of any better term. There's not an awful lot of repertory for it, aside from arrangements of folk songs and pop songs.
So tell us why you want to do the workshop and the 15 minutes of fame for it.
Something different. I have done at this point 3 15 minutes of fame sets for organ off of 2 different calls, and the 4 15 minutes of fame toy piano calls, plus the Daniel Blitz clavichord project and my previous toy piano project, the 100-note toy piano project, which some of the previous concerts include pieces from that, as well as the Daniel Blitz clavichord project. And I wanted to do, especially since some of my recent calls have been rather large in terms of the number of pieces submitted and selected, I wanted to do something that was going to be a smaller project. And the idea also of working with composers on, in a workshop situation, discussing strengths and weaknesses of how they're approaching the instrument. I mean, they're by and large relative newbies to the instrument, as am I, since I really only started playing it in 2018, 2019. And kind of a learning experience, a joint learning experience.
Yeah, I think it sort of kind of embraces a lot of the stuff with 15 minutes of fame, the sort of, being able to write pieces to experiment with, and to maybe, approach an instrument that you haven't approached before, or try an idea that you haven't tried before. With that said about composers, why don't we bring out all the composers so they can say thank you.
Time for the fun.
By the way, the performance was awesome, David. Thank you so much. Let's see. Let's get some of these people on. Karel. There's Jonah. And Leo. Who else we got out there? Hi, José. How are you?
Kind of a learning
Akmal.
a joint learning experience.
Great. Hi, everybody. What do you think? Is he all right?
Oh, yeah, it was awesome.
So welcome everybody, and I want to thank everyone for writing for this 15 minutes of fame. Not just the composers here, but everybody. Like I said, we've got 100 pieces for this call. This won't be the end right, David? We've got some other tricks up our sleeves, right? You know, or
Good.
Yes.
no, we both have short sleeves on, but we there's something up there still. Yeah, we're hoping to do another sort of 1 minute more set, if that makes any sense, and we hope to be releasing a CD as well. I don't think. Well, no, everybody should know that David has been working really hard on recording all these pieces, right? As everybody's heard and reviewed.
You know?
Yeah,
So, yes.
60 in the can and bunch more to go.
Yeah, so just
With
to
the
give,
1 minute more project that will be appearing late spring, early summer of 2023.
yeah, to give just a little teaser out for that project, we're going to be releasing like a physical CD of like 60 plus couple pieces, and also like a flash drive, you want to call it that. I don't know. We're all producing different media these days, and the flash drive will have the video, something like 80 plus pieces, right, David? That's the goal.
85, give or take. It's there's a couple of pieces where I'm still not entirely sure I can do them, even in a studio situation. We'll have to see how they turn out.
It's a great success to a project with a lot of submissions. Thank you. So does anybody here have any comments or suggestions or?
Well, I would like to thank David for his work, and Robert, thanks for your work. You know what you do with that. That's amazing. You know, it's really good. I love it.
I'd like to thank Robert Boyce and David Bohn for giving me the chance of having my music performed. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Leo?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, David, for your patience, because I did quite a lot of corrections. Because I never played the toy piano, and also I'm a piano teacher. I never had a toy piano when I was a child, so it was not that easy to imagine what is possible and not. And it was good in the end. I hope so. For me, at least, it was good.
I think it was good. And you know what?
Good.
And let me also make a comment about that too. So, so I'm a composer, and I started producing like a while ago now. And when I started 15 Minutes of Fame, we've worked with over I think over 80 different ensembles now, ranging from like the West Point Band to flute solo, clarinet solo, toy piano, Taisha Goto, which is coming up, and so forth. And so David's kind of a high scorer, if you want to call it about this. First of all, he was mentioning it before. I think 8 different 15 Minutes of Fame. He's a huge champion for 1 minute works, and this project in particular. And I want to applaud him both for, his enthusiasm for the project and getting these things apart, but also the dedication that he has to trying to get every single composer heard that he can possibly do.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's hard. I think people sort of forget as like composers. Well, I'll give you a great example. We have we're always promoting our calls to get as many pieces as we can for all the musicians. I would say every single musician that signs up for 15 Minutes of Fame is dedicated to new music and has a lot of heart, a lot of heart. So I always try to get composers to write for them, and just whatever you can, throw it out to them, because the musicians just want to play music for their instrument. And one of the organizations I was giving the call out to said, "Hey, we love your project and so forth, but it's hard for a composer to write an original work for an instrument that may not get a lot of performances, right? I mean, this was for a different instrument, but the Taishigoto is a perfect example. You composers write a composition for it, and when's the next chance that that's going to get played? It's a hard deal, and I think that's David. I just want to say thank you, just publicly, where you give everybody a fair chance and just a place to express themselves and to learn and figure things out and so forth. I mean, I know you're a composer and you're a big champion and you know how it is to be on the other side, because at high scoring, David also writes a lot of 1 minute pieces too. David, you've been in 15 or 20 different.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. It's been a while. So anyway, thank you, David. Jonah, I'll come to you, but Akmal, why don't you say hello and say a little bit about yourself and your piece quickly? Are you there? Akmal, hit you're on mute.
Wait.
Hi.
Hi. Trying to see how I can unmute myself.
Perfect. We can hear you.
Okay.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your piece quickly?
Well, I am a composer and singer, born in Pakistan and studied in Japan for a long time, but electronic engineering. And on the side, I also studied composition. I was raised on Indian Pakistani music, but in Japan I got into Western music. And then went to Germany to study more, and then came to California and New York, etc. and settled here. Went to school at Los Angeles City College, then Queens College, where I got my second master's, and Eastman School of Music, PhD in composition, etc. Taught in Malaysia for 3 years at the university there. So I write, now I'm in Queens, New York. I compose and sing, and this piece, it's called Happy Chimes. It's sort of, I have a set of wind chimes hanging in my window. In the summer, the wind blows, and these are Japanese-made ceramic wind chimes, and they sound very, very nice and delicate. So I had that idea when composing this piece. And also, the toy piano reminds me of an instrument called jal tarang, which is it's an Indian and Pakistani instrument. It consists of a set of glass cups or ceramic cups with water in them. You put different amounts of water in each, and the sound changes, the pitch changes according to how much water there is. And the instrument is played with a couple of mallets, and you can play whole melodies on it. And I never played it myself, but I was always fascinated by the sound. So the toy piano is a sort of combination of wind chimes, for me, wind chimes and the jal tarang, which jal is water in Hindi or Sanskrit, and tarang is music, so water music.
Wow, beautiful. Yeah. I always find that is like a really interesting thing about the toy piano. Maybe David, you could talk about a little bit about that. It's besides just the keys and the notes, there's a lot of other extraneous sounds, right?
Well, it depends on the instrument. This one is noisier than some, but I mean, I've got one that's got a better action and it's faster, but I don't like the sound of the tines, the individual pieces of metal that produce the sounds. And one of the things one learns very quickly about toy pianos is that each manufacturer has their way of doing things, and you can't really mix and match from one to the other.
Very similar to like organ, right?
Yeah, well, organ, each instrument is different. With toy piano, it's really, each manufacturer has their way of doing things and their sound. And a piece can come off very differently depending on what brand of toy piano one uses. Ross Carey, whose work I played on this, has done a lot of things where a lot of pieces specifically for the Suzuki brand toy piano, which has a radically different sound than any of the three that I've got. And even within this, I've got the JMAR, which I used for all four of these web presentations and for recording the 60 pieces. But I've also got two different Schönhuts, one of which is in pieces right now because the interior framework for it was damaged, and it really will not play until I get that framework reconstructed. And another Schönhut. And then I've also got one by a company called Caspinet, which has a wondrously fast action, but like I said, a radically different sound to it. The sustain is much shorter, and the individual pitches are less jangly. So, the JMAR is probably, when a lot of people think about the toy piano, it's the sound that comes to mind. So that's kind of why I built it around that one.
Right. And how about you, Jonah? I want to give you a chance to say, how's it going there?
I have to say, my imaginary hat's off to you, David. I can only imagine what it's like to have to be able to put your head around 60 separate pieces. 1 minute is suddenly, not a minute when you have to be able to work with how the new sound for every single one of these is, especially with an instrument that I had only heard of John Cage, I think, and I think it can probably be pretty easy to think, there's piano keys in front of there, so let's play it like a piano. So I my admiration to you for how well you were able to work on all that and continue to work. I can't wait to hear the minute more.
The reality is it's a lot easier when they're in batches of 15 as opposed to trying to approach all 60 of them at once.
I can attest to that.
Yes, it's a really nice format for that. Makes it more bite-sized.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like the 15 is a great way for a musician to create sets, and so that's a good question, David. Is when you were approaching the sets, what was your criteria or idea behind it?
Well, I will admit to having come up with quasi themes for each of the sets. You touched on the fact that a lot of the pieces for this set touched on holiday or seasonal considerations. And if you look through things, you get first autumn fairies, and then you get, with the nights becoming shorter over the course of autumn, you get two pieces that reference night. And there weren't any specifically Halloween pieces, so I fit in Robert Fleischer's piece, which is almost more of an All Saints out of the Christian tradition. And then moving into closer and closer to the winter solstice with Kellach Waddle's piece, and Christmas with Serban Nichifor's piece, and Oscar Jonsson's piece specifically referencing the 28th of December. And Akmal's piece just seemed to fit into kind of a New Year's sensibility. So there really was a structure in this one. In set number 3, it was for lack of any better term for it, the question of 4, and I did a lot of pieces by composers from outside of the traditional European American framework, and also touched on pieces that involved aliens and artificial intelligence and things of that sort. So yeah, each concert, each set had a sort of a theme, even if I couldn't necessarily verbalize it all that well. There was kind of a mindset behind each one. And the other part, which is very important for me, is playing pieces off of each other. Thinking of it not just in terms of, okay, here's 15 pieces, but how does the piece before and the piece after color the piece that you are hearing now? And playing and contrasting off the pieces off of each other. And so yeah, there was an awful lot of thought, as well as considering questions of tempo and tonality and so forth, playing pieces off of each other so that not only was it 15 pieces, but the whole set was a coherent thought, if you wish. And I'd note, even when I'm not doing new music, I've done a number of organ concerts built around other historical traditions, particularly, for lack of any better term, the lighter music of the early 20th century. And not only am I looking at, okay, is this piece a good piece, but I'm looking at, okay, what key is it in relative to the pieces that come before and after it? How does the meter and the tempo relate to that? And so a lot of those thoughts are things that were already a part of how I think about putting a program together, and it just got transferred to how I think about putting a 15 Minutes of Fame set together.
Yeah, I can attest and agree to that. I think people sort of overlook the importance of curation and, where the pieces are in the order of a program, or a particular set, and how they relate to each other, and it greatly affects the sort of listening experience.
And part of the reason I do this is I've been to plenty of concerts where people didn't think about such things, and it just isn't as satisfying. Mm-hmm. To me, it's like, okay, here's something cool and here's something cool, but why did you decide to put that after that, other than this is the next piece I pulled out of my library?
Right.
So,
Yeah, it really it does it makes a huge difference. I feel like that especially in maybe new music, and this is kind of a producer's view, but that there's not enough thought into the presentation of the music, its order, how just like in any compositional piece, you know sometimes you're taking somebody through a journey, or you're creating an atmosphere and so forth. And so when you're creating a program, or curating a set or whatever, that all those things count too. And yeah, there's many times there have been like great pieces, but they've lost the audience because the order of the pieces just doesn't help the listening experience. Especially, I mean, for me, well, yeah, like opening and closers is almost always. I always tell people it's really important if you open well and close well, you can save a lot of a concert just by that. But anyway, talking about curation and production and so forth like that. These, I've been talking about David is just a monster collaborator, working on so much stuff, especially, this particular 15 Minutes of Fame, which is unfolded into a pretty large project and so forth. But even these productions need like lots of technical tools and people and so forth to help. And I don't want to forget our engineer, Amro. Hi, Amro!
Hi, everybody.
This is our engineer extraordinaire. Thank you for making everything go smooth and all the pieces work together.
It's my pleasure. I really enjoy the concert too.
Awesome. Does anybody want to close off with some final comments or things to say?
See you next time.
Yes, no? Well, look, thank you all for coming and being a part of this. Oh, if there's anybody out in the world, wait, we got another comment. Oh, here we go. Serban, so glad for you turning in. He is one of our 15 Minutes of Fame, a long time collaborator and composer with Vox Novus. Yeah, anybody else has any questions out in the world and so forth, please feel free to chime in. But yeah, I want to thank you all again for writing for this project. Thank you, David. This is just a phenomenal thing. It's been, I guess we've been working on this about a year and a half now, is that right?
It started in September of last year.
So yeah, and we're not finished yet. There's a little more to go, and a little more to go. We'll probably be finishing this up in the summer, right?
I'm hoping to have the actual recording of everything wrapped by May, but famous last words. I stuck a little project in this summer in between the second and third set. And my plan was, okay, I'll have it finished beginning of August, and then I'll climb into the third set wholeheartedly. Well, August 20th came by and it wasn't ready, and I ended up recording mid-October on it, which I ended up with a completely satisfactory result. But theory and reality are two very different things from my experience.
Well, that's all right. I think everybody's going to be happy with the final product, and as someone who's produced a lot of other things, we're going at a good pace. This is going all right. Meanwhile, everybody, again, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all write some more submissions and so forth for a lot more 15 Minutes of Fame. We've got, I think there's 6 that are out, maybe 5. I think one, we had a clarinet call that just completed yesterday. But our next call is for accordion, a fabulous player. I encourage everybody to write for him. Meanwhile, again, thank you all. More. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Anwo.
Thank you.